Imagine standing right in the center of the roaring Roman Forum, wrapped tightly in a heavy woolen cloak whose outer hem glows with an unnervingly deep, shimmering shade of violet under the intense Mediterranean sun. You fully believe that you are demonstrating absolute financial dominance over your peers, but as the heavily armed imperial guards freeze and turn their cold eyes toward you, the endless chatter of the crowd dies down into a suffocating, terrifying silence. In a split second, you realize this isn't a stylish display of prestige. It is an irrevocable death warrant written directly upon your shoulders. You have just committed high treason against the empire without firing a shot, and your violent execution will be carried out before the sun sets over the hills. This brutal reality was never about simple human vanity, but about an absolute state monopoly over human perception and authoritarian control. To produce merely a single gram of authentic Tyrian purple, ancient dye makers were forced to crush, butcher, and rot over 12,000 individual predatory sea snails taken from the depths of the ocean. The entire Mediterranean coastline reeked continuously with the horrific, sickening stench of rotting flesh, left out in massive open-air stone vats to ferment endlessly under the scorching heat of the summer sun. Thousands of overworked slaves labored in toxic, lung-burning fumes just to extract tiny microscopic droplets of a slimy, mucus-like precursor that transformed slowly upon exposure to sunlight. You are not looking at a mere luxury textile. You are staring directly at an ecological holocaust painstakingly distilled into a wearable fabric. The Romans didn't ban this shade to curb reckless civilian spending, but to stop ordinary citizens from claiming divine authority. You were taught in school that Rome banned purple under simple, harmless sumptuary laws designed merely to keep wealthy citizens humble, disciplined, and economically grounded. That clean, sanitized history lesson is a total lie carefully constructed to cover up the violent paranoia and fragile ego of imperial tyranny. The truth is infinitely darker. Wearing this specific pigment meant you were actively attempting to steal the sacred mantle of Jupiter himself and declare your own supremacy. By putting on that cloak, you declared yourself an untouchable god among men, directly challenging the fragile divine right of the reigning Caesar. If anyone could easily buy divinity in the open marketplace, the entire complex architecture of Roman imperial authority would crumble into dust. Think deeply about the psychological trap deliberately set for any wealthy senator or merchant foolish enough to buy the legendary dye of Tyre with their vast fortune. You spend a staggering life savings acquiring a few precious yards of fabric, believing it guarantees your permanent political rise and societal immortality. But the moment you step out into the daylight, every hidden spy paid by the Senate marks you as an immediate candidate for state execution. You didn't buy noble prestige, you purchased a bright velvet target that invited immediate betrayal and assassination from your closest political allies. The ultimate ancient status symbol was secretly the most efficient execution notice ever invented by an absolute totalitarian regime. Consider the deeply unsettling anomaly hidden within the ancient surviving records of natural historians like Pliny the Elder, who meticulously documented the industry. The most outrageously expensive garment in human history smelled sickeningly like rancid seafood, stagnant ocean water, and putrid biological decay. You would naturally expect the refined elite of the ancient world to reject an outfit that carried the distinct odor of a decaying mass grave. Yet Roman patricians endured this repulsive stench with immense pride, walking through marble palaces smelling like rotting sea life just to flex their status. This historical paradox proves that social dominance matters far more to the human ego than basic physical comfort, hygiene, or sensory disgust. Wait, ask yourself this critical question right now. Why would a paranoid emperor like Nero make the simple possession of purple cloth punishable by immediate death without trial? If the Roman Empire was truly supreme, stable, and invincible, why panic over the exact chemical color of an aristocratic senator's everyday tunic? The moment a private citizen put on purple, he proved to the public that personal wealth could purchase the exact same holy symbols as imperial rule. Nero understood that if the illusion of royal exclusivity ever shattered, the terrifying myth of divine political authority was instantly dead. The legal ban wasn't protecting public morality, it was frantically shielding an insecure tyrant from his own deep, underlying vulnerability. Look closely at the dark investigative trail of state-sponsored asset seizures conducted during the ruthless reign of Emperor Domitian throughout the provinces. Imperial secret agents raided private estates, tearing open carved wooden chests, and burning insanely costly robes right in front of screaming, horrified families. Wealthy merchants who possessed even tiny fragments of Tyrian thread were dragged into sunless courtrooms, stripped of their ancestral lands, and quietly executed. You could inherit a simple piece of purple cloth from your grandfather's estate and suddenly find your entire family line erased overnight by government decree. The state actively weaponized everyday fashion to confiscate private fortunes and liquidate potential political rivals without ever needing a legitimate reason. Modern economic historians calculate that a single pound of authentic Tyrian purple wool cost significantly more than 20 full years of a veteran legionnaire's base salary. That is the exact equivalent of walking through a dangerous slum wearing a custom-tailored suit crafted entirely out of thick, solid gold plates today. You were literally walking around wrapped in the entire annual operating budget of an active military legion sitting directly on your shoulders. This staggering financial imbalance turned every single purple garment into a weapon of psychological warfare aimed directly at the impoverished lower classes. The Roman ruling elite used this massive visual gulf to remind the masses that any economic or physical resistance was completely hopeless. 80,000 crushed mollusks, sacrificed for one single ceremonial robe, meant that entire marine ecosystems were systematically obliterated from the coastlines forever. Entire coastal species were harvested to near extinction across the Mediterranean just so elite Roman politicians could look visually imposing during public gladiatorial games. You are witnessing a ruthless civilization entirely willing to destroy natural balance solely to maintain a temporary, manufactured visual hierarchy. The blood of countless sea creatures dried directly into the threads, turning every majestic purple cloak into an ecological crime scene of epic proportions. This reckless sacrifice of nature mirrored Rome's insatiable appetite for subjugating, enslaving, and grinding down human lives across conquered lands. Put yourself directly in the worn leather sandals of a common Roman citizen, watching the emperor process through the city streets, surrounded by heavily armed guards. The blazing purple robe dazzles your eyes, shining with an almost otherworldly, iridescent sheen under the harsh midday Mediterranean sun. You feel an instinctual wave of deep awe mixed with paralyzing terror, knowing that one incorrect glance or disrespectful gesture brings swift, public execution. The color was engineered by state propagandists to trigger immediate psychological submission, long before a single word of command was ever spoken. It was silent, high-level visual brainwashing designed to make millions of subjects bow down without requiring an army at every street corner. Wait, let that sink into your mind for a second. Are we really any different from those impressionable Roman citizens walking through the dusty Forum thousands of years ago? We mock their superstitious obsession with rotting sea snail fluid, yet we actively fight, bleed, and go into massive debt over artificial symbols created by modern corporations. You feverishly chase digital badges, artificial designer logos, and calculated scarcity generated by hidden corporate algorithms just to feel superior to your neighbors. The Roman Empire never actually fell. It simply migrated out of dyed woolen tunics and moved seamlessly into software, smartphone screens, and luxury branding. You are still operating under the exact same psychological control system that ruled the stone streets of ancient Rome. The terrifying escalation reached its ultimate climax when Emperor Diocletian completely nationalized every single private dye workshop operating across the Mediterranean basin. Private production was outlawed entirely, transforming the physical color purple into the absolute, exclusive legal property of the divine imperial throne. If you were caught holding raw, unprocessed dye, you were treated as an active counterfeiter of state currency and executed on the spot. The color purple officially ceased to be a marketable commercial commodity and became the literal physical embodiment of absolute totalitarian state control. The Roman state had successfully stolen a natural wavelength of light from the universe and made it illegal for human eyes to claim. The forbidden question that no ancient historian dared to record on parchment was shockingly simple, yet completely fatal to the legitimacy of the throne. Did the Caesar wear purple because he possessed absolute power, or was he only powerful because the brainwashed masses saw him wearing the purple? If an ordinary peasant slipped into the sacred robe under the cover of dark, did he become divine, or was the god merely a man in an expensive costume? The entire legal and religious authority of the greatest empire on earth rested on a fragile illusion made of decayed sea creatures and collective social conditioning. Once you look past the propaganda, you realize that all human political authority is just an absurdly expensive, highly dangerous theatrical performance. Here is the shocking historical plot twist that completely shatters expectations. The vast majority of people executed for wearing purple never wanted political power at all. Innocent wealthy citizens were systematically framed by jealous rivals who secretly planted dyed threads inside their homes to trigger immediate imperial treason trials. The purple band became the ultimate legal weapon for corruption, allowing government officials to murder wealthy rivals and legally confiscate their generational assets. The very symbol crafted to represent ultimate imperial majesty became the easiest tool for corrupt elites to orchestrate your silent murder in the shadows. The law meant to preserve social order was transformed into a legal slaughterhouse powered by endless human greed, envy, and systemic paranoia. At the absolute peak of this madness, the imperial court decreed that even staring directly at the emperor's purple robe for too long was an act of treason. You were legally required to avert your eyes whenever the emperor walked past, keeping your head bowed low toward the dusty marble floor in total submission. The forbidden color became legally invisible, a divine light deemed far too pure and destructive for common mortal eyes to directly behold without dying. Rome had successfully transformed a simple biological chemical into a terrifying, invisible god that demanded total, unblinking human blindness. Take a hard, honest look at your own life right now and pay attention to the invisible lines drawn by modern institutions to keep you obediently in line. You are constantly manipulated by calculated media systems to value things that possess zero intrinsic physical worth, grinding away your life for manufactured badges of prestige. The exact moment you realize that social prestige is an engineered psychological trap, the immense power those symbols hold over your mind vanishes into thin air. Do not allow modern authoritarian systems to paint your thoughts with the exact same cheap, manipulative tricks that enslaved the minds of ancient Rome. The vital lesson buried beneath this dark chapter of ancient history is to never confuse artificial state prestige with genuine human power or personal worth. Real authority does not require rare ocean dyes, expensive designer logos, or official government permits to validate its existence in the real world. When you finally stop chasing the artificial status symbols handed down by those in power, you permanently break free from their invisible mental cage. The absolute most dangerous thing you can do inside a controlled, compliant society is to remain entirely indifferent to their precious status symbols. So as you reflect on the bloody history of Tyrian purple, ask yourself one final, haunting question that will completely alter how you view the modern world. Millions of Romans lived, suffered, and died for a chemical dye made from rotting snails because they were conditioned to believe it made them like gods. What completely useless, manufactured symbols are you sacrificing your limited time, freedom, and mental sanity for in your own life right now? And if the state decided to ban your most prized possession tomorrow, would you finally realize it was completely worthless all along?